Hello, welcome to day 2 of the Clean and Simple one layer cards for this week. Today I'm using Gently Falling, which is a 2 stamp set for double stamping, one of the ones you know I love. And I'm just going to start with a simple Whisper White layer that has been cut in half at 4 1/4. So this is going to be a tall card. I'm using a variety of markers, but I'm always using the thick end of the marker. So notice that there's lines that show you which end is the thick end. And in the description, I'll put all the different colors that I'm using. And basically all I'm doing is kind of scribbling using the side of the thick end marker some colors. And I've chosen my colors to match my theme in this case, which is basically the changes, that occur in life. Again, I'm doing this series because I'm adjusting to the change in weather here and the change in season. And so I wanted to get that feeling of change, and what better way to do that than to put down some fall leaves. And so notice I'm not rubbing over any existing color really. I'm basically just kind of putting colors next to each other using the markers. You want to be careful not to contaminate the markers by rubbing over each other. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mist. So I'm misting, my favorite verb. And you just take shimmer paint and you mix it with water, put it into a mister, and then you spray your stamp after you've colored it. Now you'll see here that it's damp. It's not soaking wet, but you can see the bubbles of the water where I've misted it. And I'm just going to lay this first leaf down. Now in this design, I'm actually going to show all of each image. Many times I'll stamp off the card to give it more interest, but in this case I'm actually going to show all of the images. And I haven't used all the leaves in the set, but I've used most of the leaves in the set. And I'm only using the solid images in the stamp set, and I'm not using the outlines because I do want a very soft look. So here I am, I'm just going to do the same thing, and what I might do is switch up. Sometimes I'll start with one color, which I think was Primrose red. Next time I'll start with, Peach Parfait. Another time I'll start with Daffodil Delight. And then, sometimes I'll just use one color. So you're all mixing it up. You don't want to be too consistent in this because then it would be noticeable. And then the only one I'm kind of rubbing over the edges is the Lucky Limeade, just to give it a changed effect. Again, I'm taking it away so the front of the camera doesn't get misted. And then I'm going to lay that down. And again, I'm looking for some abstract layout here. So leaves are falling, so they're in motion. I'm hoping that this card carries with it the impression of motion. And then I might leave it to sit for a few minutes and lift it back up. And it's beautiful. My favorite cardstock to use for this technique is actually GinaK. I love GinaK's Pure Luxury White cardstock. It's a little heavier than our Whisper White, and therefore it stands up better to my one layer card designs. And what I love about it even more than that is the heavyweight Pure Luxury White cardstock. I can actually use my Copic markers on it and they will not bleed through. So I actually can take my single level layer designs and carry them into the Copic world, and so that's just awesome. So there are a few papers on the market that enable you to do that, and the one that I use is GinaK Pure Luxury White Heavyweight Cardstock. It handles the single layer. It gives you a nice strong weight for standing that card up, and it allows you to use Copic markers or alcohol-based markers if you use Bic and don't have a bleed through on the other side. So I've went ahead and I've done that leaf, and now I think I've decided to do just one more. So you could get away with stopping here. I don't know why I decided to go ahead and do one more. Then I realized that when I pulled it out, I didn't really have the right color for an acorn. And so I put a little bit of the Primrose red on there, and then I kind of went searching for my, the soft suede or crumb cake. So either one is fine. So in this case, I'm using crumb cake. So if I had to do it over again, you're actually watching this live, so I couldn't do it over again. But I would have used crumb cake on the bottom of the acorn and early espresso at the top of the acorn. I think would have been really nice. But I'm happy with the shadow effect that I get here. I'm going to have the shadow of an acorn. You'll see it later on as I finish the card, which is kind of a cool effect. Notice when I lift this up too, there's a little bit of blotching in the ink. Don't mess with that. It dries beautifully. Blotching usually ends up being wonderful shading. So now I'm going to take an H block. I'm just going to put that aside, and you might want to wait a minute depending on how wet your design was. I'm going to take Wild Honey and just put it on the top of an H clear block. And then I'm going to take Scattered Straw. So these inks are by Ranger. And I'm going to put that at the bottom of the clear H block. And then I'm going to put around the edges the Seasonal Festive Berries, which is also a Ranger ink. And so I do mix my inks sometimes. I just don't mix them on any surface. You know, I wouldn't mix them on a clear block. I would kind of keep them all the same on the block. But as far as the card goes, it's you know, anybody's call what I might put on a card. I don't give myself limitations that way. So you'll see that this is really wet. So you want to get your clear block wet with your misting device. Sometimes I like to use glimmer mist for this as well, along with shimmer paint, because you'll get a sparkle in addition to the watercolor effect. So you'll notice as I push down, I can actually see through the block to what kind of marbling. So as the block moves or as it releases from the paper, it marbles right there in front of you. It's such a cool thing. And so I left it there for a minute so you can see through the block. In the meantime, I've chosen a stamp, and I'll put this in the description, the name of it. This is one of my favorite that we also have in our sentiments this year. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. I think it fits in with the theme as well, because there's nothing I can do to keep spring here. I'm going to have to enjoy what's coming at me and take advantage of it as opposed to mourning about it. So I always use my Stamp-A-Ma-Jig. You've seen me do this before. And it's not so much for lining up my stamp as it is really for helping me decide where that stamp belongs. The plastic sheet kind of helps me move it around and pick my favorite place for the stamp to live. Do not do this unless your card is completely dry. So if you need to wait longer than I did, that's basically what you should do. You should wait a little bit longer. I just love this technique because you get this combination of textures on a single layer, and you only used one piece of paper. It just blows my mind. I don't know if it blows yours as much as it blows mine. And this is one of the reasons why I like single layer cards, because you get an opportunity to really show your stamping skills. And so it's kind of fun. So there's the card for today. I'll show you some pictures at the end. I actually already did the others that I'll be mailing out. And you'll notice that one of them actually has a different sentiment on there. That's the one I'm going to keep.